Welcome to The Importance of Staying Earnest, the podcast where we discuss the elements of taking on a career in the arts as a young person in the modern day. So sit down, stand up, grab a tea or something stronger, and come with us on our journey to find some direction in our lives. My name is Emily, and with me as always is my fellow host and good friend Harry.
Hello, and yes, today we have another good friend from back in our school days, a fellow drama nerd, currently studying a master's in broadcast journalism, a subject of which I don't really know about you, Emily, but I have no idea really anything about. So I'm pretty excited, and we haven't spoken to him in a long time. So, without further ado, joining us today is the fantastic Lewis Mackenzie. Would you like to introduce yourself, Lewis?
Oh, wow, fantastic! That's incredibly generous of you. Hi guys, my name's Lewis, but obviously you already knew that. I'm a solid 24 years old now. I went to the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire to study acting when I first left sixth form. After that, I then spent a year in the industry, and then semi-disillusioned with the entire prospect due to agent issues and whatnot. Did a couple of jobs here and there, and then eventually the big Rona hit, and I decided to have a sort of a reevaluation. Had a look at some master's courses that would interest me. Saw this one, popped right on it, and I'm having an absolutely marvelous time so far.
That's pretty fun. That's pretty dope. We've had a couple of people, I think, or we have a couple of people lined up who we're having similar discussions with about having one idea and changing into another. But I want to start off just a little bit with sixth form because obviously we're all friends from sixth form, and we all had some pretty. How would you describe sixth form? Challenging in its own way. I think we all went through some things. I think we all went through some things during sixth form. My favourite anecdote of which is that me and you broke our collarbones within hours of each other.
Oh God, yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Which threw, I think, both of our sixth form experiences into a pretty massive spin. But
it took my 2 years and extended it into a solid 3 years. Which
look, you just made the most of the experience, Lewis.
Correct. Yeah, that's
we
very
were
true.
Kicked out of school plays in the last year as a pair. We've been through the ringer in drama. It was great.
I'd forgotten you two had done that.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Goodness.
What a time! You had it worse than me, though. To be fair, I had to wear a sling for a few months, and you.
I remember after the collarbone breaking, we were in Kiss Me Kate together, and that was, that was only a good month and a bit after the initial breakage.
I think you were still in a sling for most of the time.
Yeah, I think I remember.
Yeah, and I was out of the sling a week before we went into the actual theatre, and I remember during the show I was heavily sedated, so it was very here, there, and everywhere. But
I remember you kept getting told off for not learning, not knowing your lines properly, and you'd learnt them, but I think you were just
drugged up.
I was just
high on the meds.
I was very high. I only forgot the name of the show during the show.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
It's not a huge issue. Unless your line is "So kiss me, Kate," and you totally blank, and everyone is looking at you, and then your friend just whispers to you, "Yo, bro, it's kiss me, Kate, man." It's like, "Oh yeah, so kiss me, Kate."
I think I remember I was in the dressing room when that happened, and I literally just buried my head in my hands. I was like, "Oh, Lewis."
I barely remember anything about Kiss Me Kate either, and remind me of the plot of Kiss Me Kate, please. Why can't I remember it?
Go on, Lewis.
It's a solid. Oh, you really put me on the spot here. There's this bloke, right, called Frederick C. Graham, and he's this big time producer, actor, director, and all the whatnot. And he's putting on a musical version of Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew, and he's cast himself as the lead, and he's got his ex playing. His love interest, Catherine, in the show, and all hell sort of essentially breaks loose. You've got this gangster side plot going on, which arguably is better than the main plot.
Yes, I now remember because I think why it's because it's like two plays at the same time. Half of the play is the actual production of this musical Taming of the Shrew, and then the other half is like behind the scenes.
Well, I remember
domestic.
for some reason, most of the years when we did these school plays, they had this. They just kept being sort of plays about putting on plays and stuff.
There was
a lot
about
of
3
them were
years,
like films,
which were plays about plays.
Yeah, it was producers, which is obviously people trying to put on a play, and then you had Mac and Mabel, which was about people filming and putting on a production, and then obviously Kiss Me Kate, which is a play within a play. So yeah. As I lovingly remember it, it was the McCrohan dynasty of plays who directed all 3.
Yeah.
He just had a thing for plays within plays.
I've got some lovely memories of the PGS shows. They made you feel so like a really big fish in a really big pond, and they did make you feel fantastic, because obviously it's a superb experience going onto these big stages at such a young age, and like having all the tech around you. There's fantastic costumes, set design. We were really, really privileged
we were really spoiled
to be given that
with it.
opportunity.
Just for context, our school productions were put on in a local professional theatre rather than in like the school theatre or hall or whatever. So it really was. It was such a great experience, and I think for I guess all 3 of us, I remember the first time we were backstage there and just being so excited.
Thoroughly informative.
And it was a huge theatre to perform to, and because it was a massive school, they mostly got decent sized audiences, even if it was just everyone's parents who were sort of dragged along.
Yeah, I mean, I distinctly remember it was one of the matinee performances. Well, I say performances. We went in and did a dress run, and people were allowed in to
open dress, I
watch
believe, is what they called it.
Yeah, that's it. And just this random woman came in, and she sat down and watched it, and she sort of semi-accosted me outside, and she's like, "Oh, that was really, really good." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool. So who are you here to see?" She's like, "Oh no, I'm just local Barbara. I'm just coming to see the show." I was like, "Oh, that's very nice. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it."
Barbara from Portsmouth.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
She's well known
B-dog.
in the review scene for theatre in Pompey. That's it.
Yeah, she actually massively slated it in the reviews. It was horrendous.
Secret plant.
I couldn't show my face around that town ever again.
So did you know that you wanted to go on to study acting beyond school before you got to PGS, or was that something you decided during sixth form?
It was an interesting one. I knew that I really, really enjoyed doing it. It's always something that I've definitely thought about. But when I went to PGS, it's a bit of a strange one. My entire school life, I knew that I wanted to be an actor. But then I got my GCSE results, and they were like, I mean, my brother, he's a doctor now, and I got better GCSE results than him. So I then thought, I need to like do something bit bigger with this. I don't want to just be an actor. And then after doing acting at the grammar school, I sort of realised, actually, do you know what? This is so much better. I don't care. I know that this is what I want to do. So then when I got the offer from Royal Birmingham, or as it was known at the time, Birmingham School of Acting, I was absolutely overjoyed, especially because the system of auditioning for acting schools is so brutal and horrendous. As soon as you have any positive feedback, you honestly do feel like breaking down and crying.
Where else did you end up applying?
Oh, blimey. How much time have you got? I auditioned for 12.
Oh my goodness.
In the end, all the big ones, and then I ended up getting offers from 4.
It's a pretty solid conversion rate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
third.
I was, well, considering that it's what it's, I think it's, I mean, for some of the big ones, it's like less than 0.01% get in. So 4 out of like 12 is pretty decent. But no, I ended up getting offers from a really good one. It was called. So obviously, I got the one from BSA Birmingham. I had Guildhall London. I also got an offer from Bath Spa, which
very interesting one. They had, well, obviously, Drama UK officiated schools don't exist anymore, but it was considered like if you had Drama UK officiation, then yeah, you're a big drama school. But when I went there, it really did seem like a step back from doing the stuff at grammar school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, the facilities there were they were good, and I thought that they had a lot of musical courses there, so they could all integrate and all that. And it was very good facilities, but I just got this very like amateur-esque feeling when I was there. So I very kindly thanked them and then moved on. And I believe the last school was, oh gosh, where was it? I think, God, I can't remember. I honestly cannot remember. How
Just
bad is that?
Too many drama schools.
Oh, clearly, yeah. I'm suffering here. I'm suffering. But no, the whole process was horrendous. Especially like when you go to like some of the big ones, like Lambda, RADA. You've got to pay extortionate amounts.
Yeah, massive.
I mean, even when I went, it was what, £50 per audition, and sometimes the people conducting the audition wouldn't look up from their phones, and you're like, "Excuse." I actually stopped halfway through one of my monologues I was doing from King Lear, and I said, "I'm really sorry. Do you mind if I start again? It's just you're really putting me off."
Did you get into that school?
No, I did not get a recall. But I thought, look, I'm sorry, buddy. I've paid £55 to be here.
Yeah.
No, good for you, honestly.
I do want, and also I did feel like throwing my weight around because at this point I'd already had an offer, so I thought, well, it's all right.
You know who I am.
But yeah, I walk in with my cape. It's like swoosh. Do you know who you're talking to? Anyway, and I mean, I was looking at it the other day. Even though Drama UK have ceased existence, and that was one of the reasons why a lot of these schools justified these high audition prices, they still, I mean, they've gone up. I think to audition for RADA, it's like £70 now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think we've had a couple of people who've spoken about auditioning for it, and they are like a bit confused by just the level of monetary output required to get not even a place, right? Like it's to get a chance. That seems. It seems a bit absurd.
Not entirely fair.
I'm sure they have their reasons. I can imagine it's I'm sure it's been very thought through, but it does seem, I don't know. So what was the course like then? Just kind of going through. So you've made it through all your auditions and all that kind of stuff, and you've got your you've paid your £50. How was it 3 years? 3-year course?
Yeah, 3 years, three long years.
Oh,
no. To be fair, it wasn't too. I did really enjoy my time there. I made some absolutely cracking friends who I still talk to on a regular daily basis. But the one thing that I would say about I've noticed this about the majority of acting schools. It really, really is like a bubble, and they do not prepare you enough for when that bubble bursts and you're out in the real world.
a common theme.
We've spoken about that quite a lot on this podcast.
When in first year they're telling you all these marvelous things. Like, oh yes, well, when all the teachers are regaling you of their marvelous mythical stories about when they were professional actors, and then in the back of your mind you're like, oh, this is so cool, we're being taught by this person, it's gonna be amazing, can't wait to be in the position that they're in. And then looking back on it, you're like, well, hang on, hold up. Why did you trade being on the West End to come and teach at school then? So I don't recall that being a general career progression. However, I wouldn't say that it was a bad experience. I loved pretty much every single day. What I would say though is that, unfortunately, given the actual content of said degree, it does open itself to a lot of corruption. And
how
whenever oh blimey, just little very small things at first, but then when you look into it you're like, that's really bad. I mean, for example, when I was at Birmingham, we were in second year, and we were always told you have to attend at least 80% of the classes to pass that module. But then you would, and then you all of a sudden you start noticing that certain people don't turn up to certain lessons. Like, for example, if somebody didn't enjoy singing that much, but they wanted to be a very straight actor, they didn't want to do any singing or dancing, and then you start very notable absences from certain classes, and you think, well, hang on, it's 10. Okay, so there's 10 sessions per term. So if they miss 2, that means they've got to redo the term. Yeah, that's how it's supposed to work. Okay, well, this person's not turned up to a single lesson. I wonder how that's affected them. And then one year, in second year, we were talking to one of our singing teachers, and we said, just as a joke, let's have a look at the attendance records and see, because we always do attendance, and then it gets written on a little bit of paper, gets taken off, and then that's the last we see of it. And then he looked at the attendance papers online to see how everyone's doing, and there was essentially there was this one guy who he prided himself on never missing a single day. Even when he was quite sick, he would still come in, sit in the corner and take notes. So we were expecting like 100% across the board. Superb. Nobody had any signed in days. Everyone was absent for the past year and a bit. So no one was taking track except for this one guy who didn't turn up to a single singing lesson or dance lesson, and they'd been signed in for lessons that hadn't even happened yet.
What?
And and then there was also this like running gag about always probably just, joshing with some of the teachers, and we're just like all this like open joke. It was a very open, even the person who it was about, we joked with them saying like, oh, I bet you're doing this, I bet you're doing that. Very, very funny. Which at the end of the day, it probably didn't happen, but they were a very troublesome person who often got in a lot of predicaments that they definitely shouldn't have been in. So on that basis, we were a little bit like, oh, maybe it's because they're very talented, but we don't want to lose them, because it would look really bad on the score, and it would also be such a massive waste of talent, because the last thing we want to do is take away this acting degree, which is going to be such a fantastic key for you in the future if this is a career that you want to go down. You don't want to take that away from someone just because they don't want to be a singer or a dancer. And then obviously on more sort of levels of weird corruption, you've got, I mean, Christ, what was it? When I was in third year, there was that whole scandal at Drama Centre.
Yes, I remember reading about that.
Yeah, blimey. I think it was something that they stopped the intake of actors because they found out. Obviously, please fact check this, because you know how it is. Things get passed. It's like, the whispers game.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't know what's entirely true. But the more and more you look into it, the more you realise that it turns out that if you were a female who got into acting school, if you were a female that got into Drama Centre at this certain period of time, there's a decent chance that you exchanged a few favours to get in. And unfortunately, while that does sound like a grotesque lie, the articles and subsequent court cases proved otherwise. However, I believe that is still ongoing, so it's still up for debate. But it does, given
begs the question.
How,
and also even the fact that there's an opportunity for that to be a way to get in. It means that there's some sort of flaw in the system, surely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
there's no smoke without fire. That's what I'm trying to get to. I mean, even like one of my friends, she had another friend who went to another acting school in London, and this was quite a long time ago. And she told us this story all about how she knows for a fact that Kevin Spacey is a bit of a diddler. And then we all sort of like we would sort of roll our eyes and say, "Oh yeah, all right, yeah, all right. Well, let's hear it then.
And then apparently her friend, who was at an acting school at the time, went to go and see a play he was in, said he was fantastic, and then was stage doored him, asked for an autograph, and said, "Oh, I'm a student actor as well. Is there anything like advice that you can give me?" He said, "Yeah, no, let's talk about it over dinner." And, "Oh, wow, yeah, sounds brilliant. Of course, you're not going to pass up an opportunity like that." So he goes to dinner, and then he starts like touching him up under the table, and then this is at the moment where a lot of us would just tune out and say, I think this is a little bit like tall tales. You don't really think that this actually happened. And then sure enough, what, about a year and a bit later, it came out, and I'd be the first one to tell Amelia. I was like, do you know what? I totally did not believe that story. But I believe that now, 100%. And I find it hilarious that his excuse was, I was a very different person back then, but I'm now living as a proud gay man.
Oh, the whole...
And you think, hang on.
The whole thing was an absolute cavalcade. Like, oof.
Yeah, it's
difficult.
Shocking stuff.
And the most difficult thing about it is that... So, I've been quite surprised, actually, in how much we've talked about the side of it that, isn't quite... The uglier bit of it. But from a perspective of, strange optimism of the... I mean, we'll get on to the fact that after you came out of your degree, you took a bit of a different direction and whatnot. But it's interesting trying to level up the balance of the ideal of what we want the industry to be and all of the good things that come out of performance and film and art and, the important stuff that and the reasons. I mean, I believe one of the recordings we did, we were talking about the necessity of art in order to have conversations and all this kind of stuff. Alongside that then, especially in the last few years, like the fall down of Hollywood, the corruption, the kind of the disparity between the kind of top of the food chain and the bottom of the food chain and the steps that people take to kind of get over one another. Like there's some dark corners in these industries. And
yeah, it sets a very terrifying precedent,
right?
Knowing that it happens at all levels, absolutely all levels. Oof. And the people right at the bottom who are arguably the most vulnerable.
Yeah,
you see it not only in the acting world, but blimey, there was the whole. It's just come out in the press that it happens in the football leagues as well.
Yeah,
that people at the lowest point who are desperate to get into the main scene feel compelled to perform sexual acts on their superiors just to get ahead.
And I think it's these very, very oversubscribed industries that people are desperate to get into. And there are also industries whereby if someone's influential enough, they have the power to basically say, okay, this person's in. And a lot of, whether it's theatre, film, TV, football, I guess as well, a lot of it's decided by, a lot of it is who gets the job.
Yeah.
There is a lot of nepotism that still goes on. And I think a lot of these industries have started to take steps to reduce that, but there's still a lot of it there, which by the same means allows people to use those same systems that people might go, well, actually, I worked with this person on this project. I think they were great, so let's get them on board for this. Also allows them to basically use that same system to people's sort of detriment and to abuse them.
You're never going to completely erode the who you know, not what you know, perimeter that outlines so many of these big industries that are, kind of top of Olympus style of, how do you climb that mountain? And I think the more that we take steps to recognize it, and I think the more that we come around to the perspective that I think a lot of people we've talked about, are very, even you saying earlier in your audition, just saying to someone who's not paying attention to you, look, I have, a value to be here, and whether or not you're going to accept me for an audition or not, you need to, pay attention. And I think there's a lot coming through the bottom of the food chain is way too harsh and probably horrible rhetoric. But there's a lot of, I would argue people like us who aren't unreasonable about our discussions about it or anything like that. We're not screaming or trying to, overthrow anything. We just reel about our presence and how we want the industry to be.
It's about giving people at the bottom of the food chain a voice, isn't it?
Well, exactly.
I should also prefix all of this by saying I have literally just picked the one key bad point, in my opinion. Royal Birmingham Conservatoire is an absolutely stupendous acting school to go to. It's partnered up with the music side of things. When I said, when I joined, it was Birmingham School of Acting, and there was this other place called Birmingham Conservatoire, which is Julian Lloyd Webber's school for marvelous musicians. Obviously, it's not called that, but anyway, you know what I mean.
Sounds like that film.
Some magical emporium.
Yeah, but we merged with them, so then and then it became Royal Birmingham Conservatoire. Got royal patronage. They really lifted the status of the school. Yeah, it sounds a lot better when you tell people that you're from the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire.
Fancy.
Incredibly so. The actual school is amazing. They've like plans to expand. They took me on so many different projects. If you needed help with anything, they were there for you. You meet an incredibly diverse cast of just fantastic people. And I mean, my main pull away from all of it was I was given the opportunity to have a European tour of a play that we devised in the show, and the school paid for the entire thing, and we toured across Europe with it. I say we toured across Europe. It was called our European tour, but we only went to Serbia twice.
Still counts. That's it.
It was a little bit awkward though, because we explore themes of like homicide, genocide, and all these horrible things. And there was this song that we sing called 28,000, and we sing it in English purely because, we don't know Serbian, and the fact that the song is actually about the 28,000 residents of Kosovo that went missing during the Serbian-Kosovo succession war.
Oh.
And we were just like, this is either going to go amazing, guys, or we're going to need ambulances.
Yeah.
So
we're never going to be seen again. 28,012 or however big your cast was.
Funnily enough, halfway through one of the shows, some guy broke into the theatre and stole all the cast's money and wallets.
What?
So maybe that was some sort of politically motivated move. Or
maybe that was an audience member from the night before.
I'll show him.
Absolutely livid. But to be fair, it wasn't. He didn't manage to steal that much. We are still students at the end of the day.
It's not exactly the highest, easy to steal.
And it's got to be said, that I would say is a fantastic thing that drama schools do give you the opportunity. They give you the opportunity to be who you want to be in a professional world, and they give you the tools that you need to start that journey. I mean, one of the amazing things about going to a drama school is that they certify you to have things like a showcase, and they give you the opportunity to get spotlight. They tell you who the best people are to have agencies, best people to get headshots with, and they really do try and mold you into the actor that you want to be. And that's something that I don't think any other course can effectively give to you the way that an acting drama school can give to you. I mean, I was quite unlucky with my agent leaving acting school. I was not picked up at Showcase. I was one out of, I think there were 4 or 5 of us in the entire cohort that didn't get agents, and I was one of them. So what I ended up doing was I sat down and I said, no, this is bollocks. This is what I'm going to do. I know my worth and I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit down, and I collected the names, the numbers, and the emails of every single agent that I could find in London. And it is a list of 300 names, numbers, and emails long.
Oh my goodness.
And I sat down for 3 days and I called everything to each and every one of them, asking. I would say out of that 300, I'd say about what? Maybe I got 100 emails back. And then out of that 100, I'd say maybe 25 of them gave me a positive response, but a rejection. And the rest were just no. And then out of that 25, I would say, I think it was five agents got back. And then that's where the really important work starts, in research these agencies. So that's what I did. And I then ended up going with this group called 34 Talent Agency or something like that. I can't remember exactly what they were called. And I had this really good agent. He had a really good record. So I ended up going with him. And I got some marvelous auditions. I remember I was about to go on holiday with my girlfriend. And I got an audition on the cruise. And he just said to me, just like, this is a big opportunity that you can't waste this one, can't we? Oh, okay, fine. And I ended up sitting in the toilet in our little cruise cabin, recording lines on my phone and sending them off. And I had my girlfriend in the next room being like knocking on the door. And Sam was like, yeah, Lewis, that was a real good one. You should send that. Yeah. And then it spiraled horrendously after that.
Was that because of COVID or?
No, this is. I need you to clear your minds. Imagine a time before coronavirus.
Oh,
I know, it's very difficult, immensely difficult, in fact. But please, just bear with me. And I went and I managed to nail this voice acting job for a video game, and it's an ongoing project, or else I'll tell you more about it, but I can't, unfortunately, which is very cool to say, by the way. And I went there, I did the audition, they really liked it, went away, got a recall, came back, and then it was down to like me and a few other guys. You meet some fantastic people in audition rooms, by the way. I once met like Arnold Schwarzenegger's nephew. He's a really cool guy. So I just dropped. I think
that's our second name drop on the podcast.
And essentially, I got the role. It was really good. I got set up on a contract with them, which was just under £300 an hour, and I thought, damn, this is lit. This is marvelous news. I cannot wait to like really get my teeth into this. So I did my recording sessions, really good stuff. I told them, get in contact with my agent for payment because he gets a cut, obviously, yada, yada, yada. And I'd say this was in about October time. And a bit more time passed, and the people at the agency said, "Oh, have you definitely made sure that you've given them the right details?" Yeah, yeah, sure. And I thought, well, that's a bit of a weird thing to say. I thought, as the agency, it's their job to look after my money. Yeah. I thought, okay, cool, yeah, the first of many red flags, in fact. And so I was really, really excited, really, really buzzing. It's my first proper big job after leaving drama school and getting the agent. I thought, I'm on the right tracks. This is exactly where I wanted to be in my business plan. And then I went back to the people to the recording studio at Pinewood, and they said, "Yeah, Lewis. So we're going to be changing some things in your contract. Is that all right?" And I thought, "Oh God, is this going to be good?" I went, "Yeah, no, we're going to knock it up to £500 an hour." And I was like, "Oh, brilliant! What fantastical news!" He says, "Oh, do you want me to send it to the last place we sent it to?" And I thought, "Oh, so you've already sent the first batch?" I went, "Yeah, man, we sent that like a week after you did the work." Oh. And I thought, "Oh, okay." So then I get in contact with my agent pretty much immediately after the session's over. And then I say, "Hey, look, buddy, I think we might have a small problem. They've already sent the money over. Have you guys got it?" And then he went, "Oh, yeah. Let me just check with our offices." Because at this agency, they had like 12 agents and 2 people in accounting, and so it might have just got mixed up somewhere.
Yeah.
Time passed, and they said, "Oh no, well we'll let you guys know." And then there was like this group email that went out to all of the actors that were represented by us, and he said, "Right, there's been an issue. We're going to get you money to you ASAP." Oh, fantastic stuff, brilliant. A little bit of time passed. A little bit more time passed. And at this point, I hadn't had an audition in just over a month. And I thought I'd rather just go and get a nice little job down my local. And I ended up putting pints down at the Wheelwright Arms in Havant. And it's got to be said, I absolutely loved it. It was so fun.
Yeah, you
working in pubs is cracking.
You bumped into my parents at that point.
I did, yeah. God, I bumped into quite a lot of people, actually. I bumped into Emma Reed.
Oh, yeah.
Who
your
played,
co-star.
for your listeners. For your listeners at home, who was my co-star in Kiss Me Kate, and we had a lovely catch-up. And so I had a superb time there. I was slowly working my way up through the ranks, actually. I was like, oh God, this is getting a little bit too permanent for me, but no, I had a burger named after me. Oh, I was loving life. And then one cold winter night, it was on, it would have been, 2 weeks before Christmas. And I had an email from the agency. I thought, oh, good, finally, some news. How great. Opened up the email, and it said, if you are receiving this email, then you are, well, actually, it didn't say that. It said, if you're receiving this email, you were represented by 34 Talent.
Oh, no.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, okay, what's wrong? I just went, well, this is a courtesy email to let you know that the agency is going into liquidation. I thought, oh, right, that's a bit of a kicker. How that's awful. And I knew like 2 other people who were with this agent, so I messaged them immediately and said, "Oh God, what on earth's going on?" So, oh, well, let's just see what happens. And then obviously I emailed back saying, "So am I going to be seeing my money?" Didn't hear a thing from it, and then I was calling my agent, who eventually rang back and said, "Look, Lewis, I don't know. I know as much as you do. I'm owed a lot of money." And by this point, I'd earned just under about, I think it was just under about like 2-3 grand, and I was really, really waiting on getting this money.
Yeah.
And then we had another email saying, if you are owed money, you will get it. You just have to wait.
Right.
Time passed, and I am yet to see that money.
Oh my!
And that was what, 2019?
Yeah, that was the start of 2020.
Right.
That was before.
Yeah, that was before COVID.
So
as you can imagine, I was already
ago,
very
so.
disillusioned with the acting world. And then on top of that, I thought, I know what I'll do. I pay my subscription to Equity, and they cover me for this sort of stuff. And I got in contact with a very nice gentleman at Equity, and we had a lovely long conversation all about how I can claim my money back. And then he gave me another call and said, right, I've just spoken to my boss, and did you say that they've gone into liquidation? I was like, yeah. I was like, right, yes. Bad news, you can't claim anything.
What?
I was like, well, hang on. I pay my subscription to you guys. It's over 120 quid a year to be covered by you guys. And I've got my little Equity card right here with my little Equity number on it. And on the back, it says that you are personally covered for up to £20 million. And then they went, yeah, no, unless they go into liquidation, in which case they literally have nothing to give. I'm like, well, all right, great. And then I was doing a bit more research, and it turns out that the guy who owned the agency had done this several times before. He just starts new agencies, gets agents, gets loads of money, and then shells it off somewhere else, goes into liquidation, and starts it fresh.
Oh my!
And it's quite funny. Since then, he started a new agency, and it's gone into liquidation.
What?
Yeah, it's crazy. So the takeaway story from that is, if you do get an offer from an agency, do your research. I thought I did, but just be really, really clear and very careful, because it can massively blow up in your face. This story does have a happy ending, though. I did end up with another agency.
Yeah.
And I told them this harrowing tale And they basically said, "Oh, that's really rubbish." And from then on, I said, "Look, I don't want to be that guy who you have to put up with, but all the work that I personally source from this video game project, I want to keep 100% of the money." And they said, "That's fine. We totally understand. You do that." Because I think in this industry, you really do have to put your foot down every now and again, to let people know that you can't get pushed around. Because as soon as you get pushed around, even with your agent, who you're supposed to have a very, very close relationship with, you do every now and again have to say, "Look, I'm sorry, but this is awful. I'm not happy with this." And as soon as I did that, they really did respect me, and they said that, "Yeah, no, we totally understand that. So any money that you get from this project in the future, and any money that you get from it, you can keep 100% of it. We will not take any cuttings." There was a decent period in the middle where I was my own agent, and I formed this really good relationship with casting. Oh, that's a really good bit of advice, by the way. Form good relationships with casting directors. They really, really help you. I know, like, all this casting director's kids. I know what her dogs are called. I know for a fact that her King Edward carrots did really well last year. You gotta get really good in there with them.
Wow.
And then hopefully they put you up for more stuff. And I had an email from them not too long ago, essentially saying that they want me back for another audition, not an audition, for more video game recording stuff.
Amazing.
From May until September, which is
sweet.
Excellent
That's
stuff.
fantastic.
So hopefully the money's going to be coming in pretty quickly.
Wow. Well, I try my best not to swear too much on this podcast, but holy shit.
And even after all of that, I still want to go to auditions.
Damn,
so
dude.
what is your position now? Because obviously, so you've now started this master's in broadcast journalism. So are you still doing acting stuff alongside of it?
Yeah,
is your plan to keep doing that?
I'm currently doing, as you said, my master's in broadcast journalism, and it's going really, really well so far. And all I did was tell my agent, "Look, I'm doing my master's. I'm in London. Can you please only put me up for short recorded media, i.e. voiceover work, acting to camera, acting for radio plays, that sort of thing. So it wouldn't impact too heavily if I do have to just go for like 2 days. Because if it's a theatre thing, that's all my evenings taken up. That means that when it's the performance week, I have to drop everything and go and do that. So I just said to them, I know the majority of the work that I've been getting in is for musicals and for theatre, but I just want to do recorded media for now. And if you are with a good agent, they will respect what you want, especially if you are assertive with them. Because at the end of the day, it's a two-way relationship. They're not your manager. You're not their manager. You are earning them money. They are getting you jobs. It's a lot of young actors forget that they forget that you have to work as hard for them as they have to work for you. And if there's not that mutual respect there, you're not going to get anywhere. If that makes sense.
No, that makes complete sense. And I think it's a really good piece of advice. And I think it's probably also the sort of thing I expect a lot of people actually learn this lesson a lot further down the line. Yeah. And so I guess I'm just trying to look for silver linings out of what can only be described as an absolutely awful situation.
Yeah, wow.
But I guess at least you've sort of had that lesson really early on.
But as far as the course is going, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I thought that with the skills that I learned on the acting course, I'd massively prefer being in front of the camera. But so far, it turns out I thoroughly enjoy bossing people around behind the camera. And it turns out
join me.
Yeah, it's really it's got to be said. Obviously, knowing all of the stage management course and all this hoopla behind the scenes, when I was given the opportunity to be floor manager on one of our news days, I was on the cans.
That's what I do. We haven't spoken in ages. I currently work in TV, and I'm an assistant floor manager.
Oh wow, that's so cool. Well, if you know any jobs going, please send them my way.
What a question!
But
I think Emily was about to ask you exactly the same thing.
Yeah. There's nothing.
I'm still a lowly student so far, so I'll take any paid work that comes my way. But so far, it's going really, really well.
Good.
It turns out I really enjoy that being the program editor, doing everything behind the camera, sorting everything out, and then on the off days, I'll go for auditions and do a little bit of recording here and there. And yeah, so I'm doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that at the moment.
Awesome.
But
That's fantastic.
like obviously, when COVID hit, that I sort of knew, because I saw that the way that everyone was treating the pandemic, it wasn't going to last how long the government said it was going to last. I chose to, instead of spending the next, because at the time I thought it was going to be like, maybe 5 months. And I didn't want to spend that time inside doing nothing. So I thought I'd go and apply for a master's.
Yeah.
So I applied, and then I eventually got in for the academic, for the September that we've just had. And then obviously the pandemic was just extending. And I thought, you know what, it's not
on its 1 year anniversary recording.
Oh my goodness, it is.
Yes, of course it is. Yeah, we had the 1 minute silence today for the start of the pandemic.
Yep. One year into our 2-week quarantine, as the meme goes.
If you told, like, year ago me that it's going to be easily over a year, I think I might have broke down and cried.
I think we all would have.
I think I did
I still
anyway.
sometimes fancy it.
It was like, I've got a free afternoon. I'll just sit in the dark room.
Sit and have a
top
cry.
notch.
Yeah,
fantastic stuff.
Wild.
Anyway, I think that's quite a good point to move on to. I don't know if Harry's explained to you, but we like to play a little game.
I was going to bring this
Everyone who
up
comes on.
because we haven't spoken very much about broadcast journalism, and I designed this brief around that, and I have no idea if it's relevant.
Okay, no, hit me.
Essentially, right. So the idea behind the game, it's not really a game. It's more of a kind of thought experiment, I think. And
essentially, it sounds more fun, Harry.
I did a philosophy degree. I have to make it sound intellectual. That's just the way my.
Well, I did drama. Have fun and play.
I did both. Anyway, so essentially, what I'm going to give you is a vague brief. And we just want you to take us through your thought process, how you dissect the brief, how maybe you attack the problem, etc. Now, I understand my plan was, we'll get him to talk about broadcast journalism, and then I'll be able to tweak this on the fly and make it make sense. So if this makes no sense, roll with it. So you've been asked to produce a report on a piece of new student theatre. It's a rendition of a Shakespeare play. Whichever play you would like. However, you've seen it. You're not particularly thrilled by its execution. It's not good. It's not bad. It doesn't really excite you. So you're not writing a review. But how do you go about your response? Be it in your production of the response, or if it's because you're compelled to do it for deadline reasons. I really don't know how broadcast journalism works.
Okay. I think. The first thing that I think about is that what we're taught. What is the new and the now? So, in terms of that story, the new would probably be that the students are putting on this production. I assume. Hang on, how old are said students?
We'll go university. We'll go 20s. Let's not bring the kids into this.
So yeah, there's no legal matter. There's no legal issues. So that's fine. We can skip that. But in terms of that, you need to find out what the new and the now is. So it'll probably be this production being put on. You need to think of a fun angle that's going to be equal parts entertaining and engaging for your new audience. So I'd probably pick something in particular that stood out. For example, maybe there was like a section of pyrotechnics in the show, and I'd focus predominantly on that. So, pyrotechnics. Flare up a new discussion about Shakespeare, and then I'd probably talk to people after the show. We do these things called vox pops, which are voice of the people, and I'd probably interview them and talk about what did you think of the show? Rather than my opinion, I'd get a general gist of what audiences thought about it, and then because I'd try and anchor it back to the headline,
I would say, oh, so what did you think of the pyrotechnics? Did you expect that in a Shakespeare performance? Has it changed your idea of what you thought Shakespeare could be? And obviously, because it's Shakespeare, you don't really have to worry about any context issues. I think the only people that will be upset are a bunch of, English graduates that would be like, oh, you can't do this to Shakespeare. Fire's not a thing.
Yes, they did not have fire during Shakespeare.
Well, I think last time fire was in the globe, it didn't really end too well.
Oh, yeah.
I think the Wanamaker's had to rebuild it somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sort of the general process that I would go through if I were to write an article about it. I wouldn't just go with local students put on production. I'd find something new, fun, exciting, engaging, focus on that, and then say, by the way, this also happened around this Shakespeare play. Because the last thing we also want to do is treat something as an advertisement for something. For example, a lot of my journalistic buddies would be doing this thing about Easter eggs being handed out to elderly people who can't see their families this Easter. Brilliant stuff. But then throughout the entire article and pieces to camera, they accidentally just did not consider product placement, and the entire thing ended up looking like an advert for Cadbury's. So the last thing I want to do is try and make it an advert to go for people to go and see this show. I'd try and make it an engaging article about a certain aspect of the show.
Nice.
Well done.
I like that.
You've wrangled that better than I think the brief warranted. So good job.
And before we let you go, we also like to give everyone 30 seconds to plug whatever you want, whether it's you, whether it's stuff you're doing, anything like
The
that.
wheelwrights, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't work there anymore, so I can plug them, but it won't benefit me tremendously.
Okay, you ready?
Blimey, I don't really have anything going on other than my course. I suspect
Okay.
I can plug my own social media.
Say something. You have airtime for 30 seconds. Do what you want with it.
Sure thing.
Go.
Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you so much for listening to me. What I would like to plug is this marvellous podcast that I've been listening to called The Importance of Staying Earnest. I think that the people conducting it are some cracking people, and obviously if you're listening now, great. If you're listening to this because a friend has told you to listen to it, give them a hug, give them a high five, because they gave a fantastic recommendation. And if you haven't told your friends about this podcast, go out and bloody tell 10 people.
It was hard. It was hard to cut you off there, Lewis.
Oh my god.
But thank you so much for chatting to us, and it's really nice to catch up and hear about some of the things you've been up to over the.
That is my absolute pleasure.
Yeah, man, it's been wicked. Man, it was good to catch up with Lewis. I haven't seen that guy in ages. He hasn't changed a bit from what I've heard of it. I didn't know if there was something that you wanted to talk specifically about that.
Yes.
Within there.
Yeah, I think I wanted to touch back on to what ended up kind of being a theme throughout the episode, and not a particularly nice one. Like, it is a slightly heavy one, but that's the sort of exploitation of people who are trying to start out in, and I think this is applicable to a lot of industries, but specifically oversubscribed industries. Because I think there's this perception of, well, people would, what's the film called? Devil Wears Prada. You know, the assistant role, and it's like, millions of people would kill for this job, and you should be working 24/7, and you need to do impossible tasks, and it's.
I can see where this is going.
Yeah, I think there's almost this idea that that's what's expected of people who are starting out in these industries. Obviously, that is an over-exaggeration, but you get the idea. And that can come in all sorts of forms, whether it's like that being expected to essentially give up your life for this job, or whether it's, like Lewis touched on, people being abused and propositioned in order to get what they want, or people, and I really, really felt for Lewis when he was talking about this, starting out as an actor, your agent is supposed to be someone who helps provide a voice for you, especially as someone who's starting
meant to
out
be
there.
the rock that you're tethered to.
Exactly. And so for him, of all people, to kind of almost stab him in the back, really, for it to be them, I think that's awful. And so I'm really glad that he's like in a better position now with a better agent, and also has the confidence to raise his own voice a bit more. And I think it's really hard. And I think one of the reasons it's so hard is it relies on all of these people who are starting out, just like us, just like the people we've spoken to on this podcast, having the confidence to set boundaries and to say no. And when I'm saying all this, I don't mean don't work hard, don't do that thing every now and then that's above and beyond to impress and stuff like that. But I think there's a line between working hard and working to impress and being exploited, and that's what needs to stop.
And I think when what's tricky about that is obviously there's the kind of ad infinitum of, it's just to get to that next step. But as I think we mentioned, it's something that you can see at every level of the industry, which needs to be. I think we've taken steps to move it, but the bottom of the ladder is, as we said, one of the reasons we started this is because the bottom of the ladder is slightly more in shadow.
Yeah.
And you see it, everywhere at this level, and you don't want to see it because most people who start out are dreamers in that sense, like they want to do well.
And also, a lot of people starting out don't have the financial backing to say no to jobs. Don't have the experience behind them to be able to afford to have a bad rep or anything like this. And unfortunately, when you're starting out, you're more replaceable in certain ways, obviously not as a person, in a job, compared to people who are higher up that food chain. Because, for example, in TV, the industry I work in at the moment, runners are a dime a dozen. Like, there's a million people. Okay, that's an exaggeration. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people.
I know exactly what you mean.
Looking to do these entry-level roles. And so if you say, no, I want to be paid a fair wage, and actually this is quite a big conversation happening at the moment. I belong to a lot of Facebook groups, which is where a lot of people network and get like dailies as runners on jobs. And there's a big movement of saying no to unpaid work, because it happens a lot. People will say, oh, but it's work experience. Work experience, great. But when work experience becomes a long period of time of you not just shadowing and, of course, doing some bits of work, but, learning while you're there and getting something out of it yourself, if it is just you doing the job without being paid, particularly for any more than a few days, that's exploitation. And it also perpetuates this culture of being able to get people to do it for free. And so productions won't budget in for a runner because they'll go, oh, we'll get someone to do it on work experience. And that's not fair.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. It's a tough spot. And I think I would be surprised to find anyone who started out who would say no to the idea that no matter what level you're at, you deserve, pay for your work, especially in those positions when you're starting out, because you don't have the stability of anything else, really. It's a thoroughly important conversation that should not be contained within this last 5 minutes of this episode.
We could do a whole
I think
episode
it's something
on
that we'll very much, and I think it's something we'll touch on again. But I think opening the conversation, I think we're in a better position than we've been in a long time, especially in this industry where those conversations are being heard, or with a lot of mediums being free to everyone. There's not a lot of gatekeeping to be done. I mean, look at us on here, right? We can say these things, we can have these conversations, which I don't think could be had before. So I'm positive, I'm optimistic.
We're able to build ourselves
often
a
quite
platform
strange
now with these days of technology.
Exactly. For all its faults.
Yes. Yeah, that's a whole other subject. But I think it's a really important conversation, and it's one that I'm really glad has started, and it's one that I hope will continue. Thank you for listening to The Importance of Staying Earnest. If you want to keep up with us outside of the podcast, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at TIOSE_podcast or on Facebook at The Importance of Staying Earnest podcast. If you would like to reach out to us, you can find us at tiose.podcast@gmail.com. Please drop us a review if you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.